Gainz Nation, when you start watching this pod, everyone in the comment section comment boulder shoulder for Antoine's Gainz right now. Let's go.
Yeah, it's so like I guess back to that conversation with the hype clothing lines. I think True Classic is really hyped.
Yeah.
I think I bought it when they first appeared on like social media networks, and you know how it is. It's like it's crazy how times have changed when it comes to like clothing and like workout clothing and whatnot, and like even just general stuff like like, hey, I got a Stanley Cup water bottle, and it's because it's everything's like, instead of like seeing people and like, oh, that's pretty cool, I want one too. It's like, hey, I've seen like 100 people on social media within this past day have True Classics on.
Yeah.
And not to say like that's a bad idea, and it's a pretty strategic decision when it comes to like marketing. But for the True Classic side, I actually bought me, my father-in-law, and my two brother-in-laws True Classics one year for Christmas. Like I got myself like 3 shirts, and I got them like all one. So I bought like a 6 pack. So, and I want to say like the 6 pack was like $100. For T-shirts, honestly, if Roman's probably gonna agree with me. I think that's a little too much money for 6 T-shirts. And, and honestly, they're not even worth it. They have a really good fit. Like I think it is true that they really have a good fit. Like it's like tight around the chest area, tight around the arms, and then like not baggy. Like see, the thing is like when you've been working out and whatnot, like you typically try to wear like a size up because like if you go size down, it's too tight, and if you go like 2 sizes up or even a size up, like it's like tight in the arms and like the chest and the shoulders, but it's like very baggy on like the stomach area, or it might be too long, or the sleeves might be too long. Um, but yeah, I think True Class is a good t-shirt brand. I just don't think they last. Like I want to say, like this is probably like just a chilling t-shirt now. Like this is around the house, like or if I'm going for a walk or if I'm hanging out in the backyard. This is by all means not like a going out t-shirt. Or if I need to flex on someone like Roman, I'll just bust out the True Classic.
I've never had the problem where I look too big in a shirt. I usually like have to size down. I think I'm wearing like an extra small now. How do I get on the Gainz train like you, Antoine?
Um, let's see, 150 milligrams of test, 100 milligrams of HGH. Um, but in all serious, I don't know. See, the thing is, like, I think it's a genetic thing too. Like, I think I carry a lot of like extra tissue when I'm like, well, I would say I'm gaintaining. I'm not bulking. I'm not really, and we've talked about this, so I'm not gonna get really into it. But um, I think genetically, like my arms really carry a lot of the fat and like a lot of weight. So like typically like my shoulders and arms will look a little bit bigger, and like so like my thighs. But see, the thing is like when I'm wearing shorts now, like like some of my shorts are pretty tight, um, like around the quads because I'm pretty much wearing only shorts. But like I don't know, with jeans. See, the thing is like when I'm gaintaining in like the winter season and the fall season, like jeans, I just honestly I've been trying to get out of like the skinny jeans era because I really like tight jeans, but in my opinion, they're just too uncomfortable. Like I know they look good, like skinny jeans like always look good in my opinion, and I've worn them my whole life. But I think I'm at the point where I just like, man, it kills me because if I wear more than for like 4 hours, like I feel like I need to just like get a pair of scissors and just cut them because you can't. I don't want to take them off. Like they're impossible to take off.
You know, like the '80s rock band um, style look. You know how like the pants were just like ridiculously tight, and there's
Yeah.
no way those guys ever trained legs. How many unborn children do you think were perilously like doomed from the jump due to how damn tight those jeans were?
Probably a lot, honestly. I mean, we could go into that. We could go. We honestly should. Maybe that'll be an episode for Tyler to go into because like, man, the way we kill like not kill, but like the way we like hurt our like our
Slaughter is the word you're
testosterone.
looking for.
What's up?
Slaughter is the word you're looking for.
Yeah. The way we slaughter like our like our own like genetic factors and the way we live and stuff is like insane. Um, Honestly, speaking of which, man, here. Well, is it gonna show up? I don't even think so. Oh yeah, well.
Yeah.
Did you see? I started reading this, buddy.
Yeah. You like it? It's so funny because.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's so funny because as soon as like you posted that, like I checked out. That's Dr. Peter Attia, right?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
I checked them out for like the first time in so long, and I like pretty into like a 2 hour long podcast with Tom Bilyeu.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like kind of checking back into him, and then like you posted about that. It was so funny. We were like on the same wavelength.
Yeah. So Dr. Tyler Saunders, he brought it up, and see, the thing is, like with Peter Attia, like Dr. Peter Attia, I heard him from like Found My Fitness. I saw him on the Huberman Lab podcast, and he was on Joe Rogan like once or twice. And so like that's the only time I really like paid attention. But I think when I was hanging out with Tyler after we wrapped up the podcast and grabbed food, he was telling me a little bit more about like how his concepts are kind of like relatable to like how he works with his patients, and like you kind of could tell with the podcast, obviously. Which I did talk to Tyler. Him and I are gonna schedule something probably July or August time frame. So hopefully I think we're gonna get more more in detailed with the 5 aspects of like living and like healthy living. And we're gonna get some more details, like diving into those topics, which is I think the next point. But if you guys have any other topics you want to have him discuss, let us know. But yeah, and so I was like you, I was like listening to this podcast called The Drive, and and then I saw that he wrote a book this year. I think this book only came out this year too. And if you guys don't know this, I posted this on Threads, but if you're looking to obtain more information through like books, audiobooks, and stuff like that, like um, do what we've been doing for like the past like 3 4 years, I'd say 3 years now, is go to your library, get a local library card, and like rent the crap out of that library. Like I couldn't tell you how many times, like how much money we've kind of spent on physical books in the past like couple years. And in my opinion, like I'm more of like I don't want to be wasteful. And see, the thing is, it's like, we would buy a bunch of books, we would sell them for cheap. And then like, obviously it wasn't to anything to make money off of, but like, it's just like to the point where it's like, we're trying to be minimalistic and try to save space within our like collaborative like goods, I would say. But go to your library. Like most of these new books, they have them. And if they don't have them, they can transit them to the library and you can pick it up. And even better, if you don't want a physical copy and you don't want to leave your house, or you want an audiobook or ebook, you can rent it like the same minute you hit reserve, as long as they have a copy of it, because with the licenses, they only have so many licenses. So you could be on a waiting list, even with the audiobook or the ebook. So I would say check out your local library. Like it is, I mean, I did the Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. In this book, it's 408 pages. I'm telling you guys, I rented it Monday. Today's Thursday. I'm already on page 307. That's how.
Dang, buddy.
That's
awesome.
how. That's how much I like. I honestly love this book. Like, I think I like this more than like the Why We Sleep book. Not to say like I didn't like the Why We Sleep, but like, um, he just goes over his concepts as like a doctor and like pretty much like longevity medicine. And talks about like medicine 3.0 and like how his idea from, and like he discussed like the different like genre. I don't even know if I want to. I mean, unless you want me to get into a road, because it's like
let's
fresh.
Let's go. I love it. Yeah, please.
But he goes into like certain ideas with like how like typical standard medicine is like you don't see your doctor until something's wrong, right? And like even like Dr. Saunders and like Dr. Attia, those doctors want to make sure they're seeing their patients and making sure the whole idea of their medicine career and path is to make sure you reach your goals. Like, do you want to still be playing tennis at 80, 90 years old? Do you still want to be playing pickleball like Roman's getting into at 90 years old and be still great? Do you still want to be able to pick up your great grandkid? Like, so we're not talking about your grandkid, your great grandkid. Like, maybe you could be old, you could be around to even pick up your great grandkid. And like, that's even like, and that hits home because I think that's the reason why like I work out and want to stay healthy as much as possible, because like becoming a father in February and stuff like that, it makes me like, like obviously this was before this, but like when it actually happens, I think being around and like seeing like his kids grow up, or maybe his kids having kids, like I want to be around for that. Like I want to be able to be active, because I probably said in the past, like my grandparents, all of them passed away when I was like 7 years old. So I never had a relationship with my grandparents. I have no idea like what they were like, all about, which is kind of rough. And like that's been a goal of mine, and just being able to keep up with like the younger generation. And so back to the point where it's like, Dr. Attia, he wants, and this is what we preach too. Like, this is why I always say like blood work annually, and make sure you check in with your doctor, because they want to see their patients even when they're healthy. Even when, like when I was in Arizona and I got my blood work done, we did various tests, and we did, we talked about family history, and the doctor's like, well, and this is where some doctors kind of probably lose out, because like when you have that patient, he didn't really push me to like where Dr. Attia pushes his patients. He goes, man, Antoine, you're like a great patient. Like there's nothing wrong. We don't see anything. I wish all my patients were like this, right? Very good compliment, right? Roman, wouldn't you say that's a good compliment? Like,
Yeah.
but see, the thing is, what which I don't like and didn't like, and what he like preaches is like, just because like I'm a perfect patient now, like how could I be a perfect patient like 20 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from, so like he goes into that like in the beginning, like how like medicine is like kind of rough when it comes to that, like like and also which is very interesting, like this is I would say if you I would say this is a great book if you want to like learn about like longevity medicine, but it does get kind of in the weeds with like like actual medical terms, like discussions. It's pretty cool though, because it does go into like things like cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, obesity. It goes into, I'm missing like one more, but it goes into those certain like ideas and verbiage, and just explains the heck out of it, where it's pretty detailed when it comes in the medical literature, which, you know, I'm not going to be surprised if like Roman read the book and like, this might be a little bit over my head, which it's a little bit over my head as well. So, or like if you listening, you decided to read it, maybe it could be over yours, but like, it's like pretty cool, because like he kind of goes over like where like there are certain things where like if we put into order now, then it would help out in the future, hopefully, right? Obviously nothing's always 100%, but if we know there's a study, like he was this, like there's even a part with like nutrition where I actually just started finishing that up, but like how people, people just like, we might talk about ketogenic, low fat, no sugar added diets, all those diets, but we don't ever talk about like nutritional biochemistry, where we talk about like Roman, would eat foods and do better off one thing himself, and then Antoine would probably do something a lot differently, or the same. It could be the same, right? And he was talking about like it's crazy that there's these fads out there, because like how red meat causes cancer, and like there was like one study that maybe would get you like a 17% chance of like cancer. And he goes, I think I'd rather worry about eating more chicken or tuna or red meat compared to like smoking, which is like it raises your percentage by like 15 to 2,500% chance of getting cancer. So like kind of going over those ideas, and like in your body, are you overnourished, undernourished, overmuscled, undermuscled, and like what foods deal like well with you? So it's like some of those ideas are like really crazy to think about, because like when we talk about like diet or bulking, we don't really ever talk about like if we're really overnourished, undernourished. And then like it was like crazy to see like, to ask those questions like what about lean body mass? What about not lean body mass? Like, and then he kind of explains how American population is mostly overly nourished and then under muscle. So like not a lot of muscle tissue, but overly nourished. Like the food intake is way too much of a surplus. Um, and I know I'm spitballing, but this is like the stuff that's top of mind, Roman. So if you have any questions or if you want me to stop, like just please stop me.
No,
Um,
I love it. I think the podcast I listened to the other day, I think he was going over the book, but I definitely am interested in reading it, as well as Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep. But I think you're gonna really like the end, because I think the way he wraps it up, he kind of makes it very personal to himself,
no,
and how like he's sort of like thinking about all of this as like a person, because he like, from what you're describing, and from what I understand about it, he takes like a very scientific approach to the beginning. He goes over like, all
yeah,
right, here's like the four horsemen
yep,
of
diseases, yep.
of diseases, and like kind of dives into it, metabolic disease, blah blah blah, all this stuff. But
Mhm.
he like makes it very personal towards the end, to appeal to the reader, like, hey, like I have to think about this stuff too.
Yeah, yeah, and
Interesting.
yeah, and like also too, it's like, it's he goes over like tools and stuff, like even like like I here I get it's right here on my desk, but like I even have like, a blood pressure kit. So it's like, stuff like this, like it's like, obviously like the blood pressure kit, like if you like, a lot of people have high blood pressure most of the time, right? Or you could be like my wife and have lower blood pressure. So, we're literally like, we salt her food and water a little bit more, and she eats a lot of more meals because of that. But like a lot of the population, like jokingly aside, it has high blood pressure, and I monitor mine once in a while because I mean, I'm more probably prone to have higher, and then like my wife is like prone to maybe we're trying to get her closer to normal. So we have that. And then he was talking about like the like glucose testing, and I know Rhonda Patrick talks about it a lot too, because she's more on the nutrition side. And he was talking about like metabolic disease, like you were saying, and how like glucose testing with like certain foods might be actually a pretty good idea. And like in Roman, obviously you might not know this, or maybe some of the listeners may or may not know this, but like it's pretty crazy to see that even like and going back to the glucose testing, when my wife was pregnant, when a woman is pregnant, they do an oral glucose test pretty much, and they just dump like like just a liquid form of glucose. It's like a tube, and then you drink it, and then within an hour they test you, and it's like pretty much to say like how does your body digest the glucose, and in your pancreas, and to either see if like you need to do a 3 hour window or stay with the 1 hour. And if you pass or fail, like you could potentially get diabetes or have diabetes, right, Roman? Like, do you know that testing?
Yeah, it's just it's an indicator test. So like, man, women women get such a tough rub, but
Well, well, he was
they're
saying like, but he was saying that he has like all his patients do that test, even if they're pregnant or not, and male. So that's why I was wondering too if you
right.
saw that too. But
Yeah, I think they call that the 1 hour glucose tolerance test.
yeah,
But women in particular, when they're pregnant, they call that gestational diabetes, and it can be transient, so it can like be
yeah,
developed in utero, or like when a woman is pregnant, and then it can go away when like postpartum. It's such an interesting and like weird phenomena that occurs to women. But that's really fascinating.
yeah.
We had a coworker that she developed gestational diabetes.
Yeah, and it's like, but it's like insane that like you don't I mean I could tell you personally, out of my 29 years of living, I've never gotten asked once of that. Have you?
No. No.
And he goes over like ApoE, like the genetic form of like, testing for that. And there's another test where he likes to test besides just like cholesterol. I see, the thing is, like, I'm like old school and like I'm an old man. So like when I like a page or something, instead of like, because it's not my book, I can't highlight it. I'll take photos of the picture.
Yeah.
But like here, this is
It's so funny while you're looking for it. I do the same exact thing if I like want to reference back to something. So I just like I'll go through like old photos sometimes. I'm like, why do I still have this? Like I already checked these references out or whatever. But
it's
it's funny that we do that.
it's sorry, it was APOB and LPA testing, and he said that he even puts that in like the blood panel when it comes to like blood work and blood testing, which I looked at my blood work. I don't have that in there. Never got tested for it, but predicts the risk of ASCVD. And then the APOB tells more of a concentration of LDL particles, which is more predictive of a disease that could be concentration of cholesterol. So it's a little bit better screening. He doesn't really like the total cholesterol, HDL, LDL, those numbers. And also too, like maybe because of the fact that you know, again, this is like something that may or may not have been explained, but like he was saying, like the blood work markers, like when you get results back, like the average is off like actual people's numbers and stuff. And he was saying like how like unhealthy of a society we are now. So it's like, just because like you might be a little bit close to that high or low depending on which one's bad, and like you're still in the normal range, like that's pretty bad. Like that's like you more likely want to be on the opposite side of the average. Like say if like 100, and then 200's the low, 200's the high, and you obviously don't want to be above 200, and you're at like 190, like you need to like seriously work on that. You're getting really close, and that's something that you want to, if it's something you can control, right? Obviously. But if you're on like 110 and 100's like the low compared to normal, like that might be better, right? You might be in a better spectrum because obviously if 200 is a high and we're more of an unhealthier society when it comes to medicine, then you probably want to be on the lower end so you don't have to, do too many lifestyle changes. And then what the heck other, man,
You know,
there's, yeah, go ahead.
it's crazy, like a crazy thought experiment that goes off of that. So if we assume that the majority of Americans are unhealthy, that means that our RDAs are based off of the health status of being unhealthy. So if we're talking about like concentrations of like calcium ions, or
Yeah.
we're talking about like LDL,
Or
HDL,
vitamin D
total cholesterol, like,
supplementation. Yep.
yep. So if you're getting readings back from your doctor and they're like everything's fine, like you're fine, you're in good health, and you don't feel good, there could be something else going on behind like the very metrics that we use.
Yeah.
And it is good information, and it probably applies like broad spectrum across populations. But when we're talking about like n equals 1, like you might have certain genetic like predispositions towards certain things, or you may like need to be higher on a particular nutrient, or potentially lower because you have organs that are like particularly sensitive because they have like additional sensors like
Yeah.
on them, inside them, what may have you. So it's a very fascinating thought experiment that like when we look at the data and we like think about like and we learn about like what RDAs are, if they're predicated on the concept that it's population wide, and the hypothesis is that the population is mostly sick, then we're predicating these RDAs based off of and just like registered dietary allowances. Like for example, an RDA that's often referenced is like 50 grams of protein for an adult, which typically, which we talk about a lot in this podcast, and then also in the health and fitness industry, that's woefully deficient, woefully deficient.
Yeah, and to your point, like in the nutrition side of things, it's like, you know, if they're overnourished, they're not getting enough protein. If they're undernourished, they're still not getting enough protein. Like, they're filling the calories with fats and carbohydrates for the overnourished population, and then the undernourished, if they probably added enough protein, they would probably get the calories to get, to the standard nourish. And also too, on that track with the nutrition side and like weight and stuff, and it's like crazy on like how like he was explaining how about like, you're more better off to being more leaner than like heavier, even if maybe the only thing is he didn't really go over is like lean body mass. And then I actually texted Tyler about it. I'm like, because he read the book as well, and I was like, I was just curious. I was like, maybe that could be an episode of itself. It's like, how much Gainz is too much Gainz, right? Like, like obviously we're not talking in a sense to generalize and make it more specific, I should say, not general, but we're not talking about the population that uses, steroids. We're not talking about the people that are like, the Kai Greens, the Phil Heaths. We're talking about the average person when it comes to them not taking any, steroids, testosterone, any of those drugs to enhance their performance and or body. I'm talking about the average individual that maybe dabble in some creatine. Obviously that might be not natty. But I had that question. I said, like, hey, I was like, what about the average person, and like, is too much Gainz like way too much for like, someone's future health? Or would it be better, instead of like dirty bulks or regular bulks, like maybe never to get on that higher end of spectrum, like, back to Antoine's dirty bulk days. My heaviest was like over 240 pounds. I mean, I weigh only like 205, 206 today. So it's like, will I ever, like, knowing this, like, is it worth to even touch 240 again? If I have, like, unless I had maybe 20 pounds of lean body mass to add onto that, which probably won't happen. Or is it better to maintain and, just have an extra little bit more body fat to make myself not get into those situations where it could have potentially ruined my health. So that's like something I had too. It's like, that's a whole idea of itself, because it's like what I'm saying? Like the Chris Jones of the fitness world, where they would, we'd bulk up like 50, 60 pounds overweight. And it's like, at that point, is it worth it? Like, and compound it, right? Say if Roman dirty bulks every year, say if he dirty bulks, and, and you might know these people today, you might know like people who look really good in the summertime, and then right when it starts, the leaves start falling, the bonfires start happening, and then they start Roman's just eating s'mores, cereal, pancakes, Reese's, even though he can't eat half of the things I was saying. But and then you kept doing that. So like Romans goes to 165, and then by fall he gets, by fall to like January-ish, he gets to like 185, 190. And he just feels like crap, but he might be a little bit stronger. And then he gets to 165 when it comes like May, June. And then he's back at the same cycle. Like compounding that over the next 20, 30, 40 years, what does that do to Roman's body? Will it hurt him? Will it hurt his organs? Will it maybe potentially put him at risk for type 2 diabetes? Like, it's just like one of those things like that. And I'm just curious about that. But that's the last thing I wanted to say, buddy. I mean, we're pretty much about out of time, so I don't know if you want to close it out or say anything more to that. But
yeah, I don't think we have any data in that regard, but I'd say it's one of those situations that's pretty intuitive. I got close to 180 pounds in probably end of 2021, sometime beginning-ish of 2022, before I started to kind of cut back down, go into maintenance, cut back down. I sit around like 153 right now. I remember like sitting down to like put on my shoes. It was like I would get out of breath. Like I get out of breath like going upstairs. Like I was not athletic. I was pudgy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was pretty strong. Like I hit some all-time PRs, but like I knew in like my heart of heart that like I was not in what I would probably consider peak athletic condition.
Yeah.
So I think many of that stuff we can intuit if somewhat like easy task, excuse me, like
Yeah.
tying our shoes is like encumbersome. If we're getting out of breath doing that, that means our aerobic health is like absolutely trash. So yeah, just that's just like a little piece that I kind of want to add to that. I think many of those things we can intuit. Not all of our health markers we can intuit, but a situation like that, when you get into exercising and the bulk cut, maintain routine, I think you have a pretty good idea when the bulk has kind of run its course.
Yeah.
But
After a
you
couple
can,
of times.
but there's also some you can get more exact with data, like personal health data that will help to inform your decision too as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I could keep going, but like another thing is he was talking about is like a good test is like VO2 max, which he does like annually with his patients. He talked about like what Tyler was talking about, like zone 2 cardio, and then like how good your grip strength is, and about like hip hinging is important as we get older, like squatting, deadlifting, getting out of a chair, getting off the ground with only minimum of like one arm or one hand, I guess you'd say. But that's it. I'm not gonna say anymore. I think with this episode, I think if you care about like longevity of your health, I think and it's like crazy. It's like you read this stuff and it's like, man, this is like exactly what like you work your butt off for like every week. You make sure you're like on point with everything. But if you guys like this idea of like, health and fitness and lifestyle, like let us know. We could definitely get more into it. I know Dr. Saunders would love to get more into it too, because this is kind of what he practices with his patients. So please check us out. We're on Threads now, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're on all audio and video platforms for the podcast. And check us out, Gainz Podcast, and all of that. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Bye.